All right, what is going on, guys? Hannah's joining us on the podcast again here. This is episode 26. Today, we're just going to be talking with the Open coming up. We're just going to be chatting about how to maximize your Open attempts and how to maximize your Open scores. So, kind of the topic of discussion today. Thanks for joining us today, Hannah.
No problem. It's going to be a fun one.
Yeah. How's your week going?
Pretty good. The usual soreness starting to kick in on day 3 of the week, but other than that, can't complain.
Rest day tomorrow.
Can't wait.
Yep. You gonna eat the cheeseburger tomorrow or Sunday?
Oh God, we've been talking about this cheeseburger thing because Kyle's convinced that I still need more calories, but I told him I couldn't eat any more food. But we both listened to a Joe Rogan podcast where he said after he ate a cheeseburger, he had to take the whole rest of the day off because he felt so terrible. So we're trying to plan on what day to do that to me.
Yep.
Probably not going to do it, but if I had to choose, it's going to be Sunday because I can't be a non-functional adult for the rest of the week. So we'll see. I'll let you guys know how it goes.
Eating a cheeseburger and watching football is not a bad Sunday. So
it's not as long as you don't feel like you're gonna vomit afterwards, but maybe I'll just make my own and then I'll be good to go.
Oh, that's definitely not as fun.
Does that defeat the purpose?
But so I guess getting into it, guys, we're gonna start off kind of defining Open workouts here. What we've seen in the past, obviously we don't know the workouts, but we're going to kind of define some trends that we've seen from the Open in the past. Then there's some underlying kind of like things that we have to understand before we can really start breaking down strategy for these workouts. So we'll talk about those. And then after that, we'll kind of talk about how to pace, how to look at and break down workouts. So these are the ones that I came up with. We have some bottleneck workouts, biases in workouts, strength limiter workouts, thruster. There's always one that has like thrusters, burpees, or thrusters, chest to bar, or thruster row. Literally every year it's been at the last workout. Except for last year. That was the wall
there's
ball.
That little grindy one of the snatch burpee.
Yeah, the 10 rounds.
Yep.
Yeah, I think that was
lengthy and gross.
Workout. Yeah, the first workout. And then I guess last year they did that 40, 80, 120, 40 muscle ups, 80 wall balls.
Break up however you want.
120 wall balls or something. Yeah. So for the most part, minus 1 year, there's been some sort of thruster burpee, thruster chest bar, thruster row. And then one kind of like classic CrossFit or continuous movement or motion workout. Did you have any others that you had kind of come up with, Hannah? Or
no, those pretty much kind of seem to be the trends.
Yeah. So if we're looking at kind of like giving some examples of these guys, bottleneck workouts. So what would you describe as like a bottleneck workout?
Something that is going to get the majority of the general population stuck.
Yeah.
So whether that be a high skill or a heavier bar, you'll be able to do some of the work, but at some point you're going to kind of get quote unquote bottlenecked by the skill or the weight.
Yeah, it's kind of like that's the part of the workout that's going to take up like a majority of the time almost.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think one of these is definitely handstand push-ups have always seemed to be kind of like a one that they've used. A couple years ago there was 55 deadlift, 55 wall ball, 55 cow row into 55 handstand push-ups to that standard. I have two standards now. I think it's the one where you measure from the wrist.
We could have a whole podcast on the handstand push-up measurement.
Yeah, right.
You could call in some external sources and get their opinions. I'm sure that would be entertaining.
Yeah. Calling Jacob Hepner for his handstand push-ups on his knuckles.
You gotta do what you gotta do.
Yep. So Some sort of bottleneck. There was another one that they had that was deadlifts and box jumps, and the deadlift ladder ascended in weight.
Mhm.
And it ascended in weight, and I think it ascended in reps. I could be wrong. Might have descended. But again, you're gonna kind of find a weight. This kind of jumps back into that strength limiter workout, but you're gonna find a weight that is gonna take up probably a majority of the time in that workout. I think for most people, it was like for guys, it was like the 275, 315 bar. I think for ladies, it was like the 185, 205 bar. And you kind of just sat and worked at that bar for a majority of the workout. So that's kind of what we're talking about with the bottleneck, some sort of piece that's going to be take up the majority of the workout. So a bias workout, what are your thoughts on what that is?
Like my predictions for this year or in general?
Or just like in general? Yeah. Like what would you call like a bias workout, or like a bias that you wouldn't like to see in a workout?
Oh man, it's got to probably be high volume of some gymnastics movement.
Yeah. It's like a gymnastics bias, like
Yeah, where it's like just continuous pulling or some sort of combo of like a pull press.
yeah, like chest to bars and a bar and a handstand push-ups or burpees or something like that.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah. Yep. I think the most bias workout that they've ever done was that row and wall ball workout. There's like
Yep.
rep 20 and 20. I think that was probably the most biased one that they've ever done towards tall people.
Yeah, so not only do you have like skill bias or strength bias, but you also have bias towards the individual. So their actual like size, weight, speed, endurance versus power, all those kind of things. So
yeah.
That's kind of a big category, I guess, because it could go a couple of different ways.
Yeah. What would you call a skill bias workout then?
Let's see. I mean, maybe if it just had multiple skills in it versus just one.
Okay. Yeah. I don't think we've seen.
I don't know that. I was looking through last night and nothing stood out to me, I guess.
Handstand push-ups into the handstand walk workout, the 200, 50.
Yeah, I guess that was double. I'm kind of thinking more of like a 3 movement, and 2 of the 3 movements are skill based.
Yeah, like something like a pistol muscle up type thing.
Yeah, where you have like kind of both ends of the spectrum there.
Yeah. They seem to keep like super skill bias out of it. It's always just like a touch on a skill. I think in the past,
I think that makes it accessible to a lot of people, which is cool.
Right.
But as you're like going into more of a competitive environment, that might not apply so much to the open as it does to qualifier workouts for a sanctional event or something like the sort.
They might change it this year too, just because they're only testing 3 workouts. So they might want to get some sort of skill workout in. So
maybe it's the year. We might be on the edge of something.
Yeah. So strength limiter workout, kind of chatted about that a little bit already. But most of your clean ladders, like the workout last year with box jumps, clean and jerk.
Clean and jerk, yeah.
Yeah, and then pistols, clean and jerk, like that would be kind of like your strength limiter workout. I think there was one with chest bars and snatches, toes to bars and cleans. So those are kind of your strength limiter workouts. And Hannah, you had said kind of last night where it's like there's always like that barbell where you're like, oh, I don't know if I'm gonna make it, but I might make it.
Yeah, you're like there's one in the workout and you're like focused on it and you get to it and you're like, I don't know if I'm gonna make it, and then usually you do because your adrenaline's through the roof. That's always what kind of makes it fun.
Yeah. So those workouts, like you kind of have an idea of like what bar you're gonna get to on them for the most part, and then like whether you do more work than expected or not is kind of just like you'll see like in the when you get to that bar kind of.
I would say the strength ones are, of the group of workouts that we're kind of talking through, probably the easiest to identify where you're at ahead of time.
Because
those numbers tend not to change too drastically.
Right. Yeah. And you out like just with lifting too, like even if you hit a complex, like you can compare it pretty easily to old complexes. Or like strength, like you're like, oh, I hit a clean hang clean times 2 into high hang clean times 3, and it was 90% of my front squat or clean max. Like
That would have been crazy front
probably,
squat.
yeah, like probably a little bit higher than. So like,
Yeah.
you know, you can kind of get an idea. Whereas like a lot of times, like gymnastics, you test maybe like once in the beginning of your cycle and then once at the end of the cycle. So you might not have as great of an idea where you're at, like gymnastics wise. And then it's always, then you're, for the most part, you're throwing in like high respiration rates, high heart rate into
I think
like,
that's the kicker, is that you
yeah,
don't really think about, you're like, you see something on paper and you're like, oh yeah, I'm very capable of those. But I think a big part of what we miss is how high your heart rate is when you go to do those things. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. But yeah, I think the strength limiter is probably the easiest, and we'll get into this more, like to kind of game plan for and test for. So then obviously thrusters and burpees, or thrusters and chest to bar, or thrusters and
Some
row.
sort of couplet. Yep.
Yeah, yep. And then pretty typically there's one workout that is just like continuous movement. So my prediction this year is that they're going to retest workout from 2013. That was a 10-minute MRAP, 5 shoulder to overhead, 115. I think it was 75 for ladies actually. 115 for guys, 75 for ladies, 5 shoulder to overhead, 10 deadlifts, and then 15 box jumps, 24 inches.
I hope they retest that one.
20 inches. Oh, that was like one of the worst workouts I've ever done.
I hope that's the one that they choose.
Yeah, I was in Minnesota.
Maybe that'll give an insight into the type of athlete I am, but
yeah, short person workout for sure. I was in Minnesota shoveling snow into my bathtub to give myself an ice bath after my first attempt on that workout. So.
I was a senior year in high school, so
sweet.
2 different phases there.
Yeah, so those are kind of the workouts, guys. So there, we kind of mentioned this before. There's kind of some underlying ideas or things that we have to understand before we go into creating pacing structures for these workouts. The first one we'll kind of chat about here is your athlete profile. I've kind of broken this down into like a powerful versus enduring athlete. Kind of keep it a little bit more simple. Hannah, I'm not sure like what you were kind of thinking about athlete profile and how to break that down.
Yeah, I think let's keep it simple. Being either more biased towards a powerful athlete or an enduring athlete. That'll help us kind of give some structured strategies for when we go through all the workouts again. But obviously for everybody listening, there's a variety of combinations that you'll see. You're not just purely one or the other. And if you don't know which one you are, excellent time to find a coach that can help you figure it out.
For sure. So yeah, I think those are like kind of 2 ends of the spectrum, and then people kind of fall in between those ends of the spectrum. So the better CrossFitters are a little bit more in the middle, and then you kind of branch out from there. So so how would you kind of like look at defining a powerful athlete, or what types of things should a powerful athlete be thinking about heading into the open here?
Well, I would define a powerful athlete as someone who is strong, so pretty great raw strength numbers, Olympic lift numbers, that kind of thing, and someone who is more of a start out hot kind of athlete and not so great at those negative splits. Yep.
So for an example of that is like most CrossFit workouts, you're going to have split times, or you should be paying attention to your split times after your first attempt. And you'll see like maybe round 1, to keep it simple, is like 60 seconds. Round 2 is like 1 minute and 5 seconds. Round 3 is 1 minute and 7 seconds. Round 4 is 112. Round 5 is 115. Round 6 is 130. And so you kind of see this like, and then like there's a minute left in the workout, and all of a sudden you get another round in or something like that. So they typically, powerful athletes have a little bit of a kick at the end, but we'll start to see kind of like a degradation of split times over the course of a CrossFit workout.
Yeah, and what kind of, just for people listening, what kind of person starts CrossFit? Like, what is their background usually if
Oh
they're
yeah.
classified as more of a powerful athlete?
Yeah. I don't know. What have you seen? Like,
Usually I see a lot of football players
yeah.
that are pretty like powerful athletes, but you ask them to kind of do a 20-minute AMRAP and things just fall apart. But they're just so strong, so they can get through it. It's just
Yeah.
maybe not the consistency that maybe we would train someone to be, but yeah, a lot of football players, a lot of sprinters.
Mm-hmm.
So they don't necessarily look very strong or lift very strong, but they are very explosive.
Mm-hmm.
I would say those are
Yeah.
probably two
Yeah.
ones I see a lot of.
Yeah. I think, and sprinting also applies to like, in swimming as well, like a swim sprinter. I've seen those guys come out pretty hot, and not be able to hold on. But yeah, you're typically looking at a little bit more of like an explosive athlete, maybe like a high jumper in track and field. 400-meter runners even can tend to come up a little bit hot. Potentially, maybe not. I was gonna say a guard.
This is kind of where we get like kind of into the like in between. But yeah, I would say like if we were trying to stick to the ends of the spectrums, those are pretty good profiles.
Yeah. So, and then how would you define, or what would you look at as like more of an enduring athlete?
Enduring athlete, someone who can sustain the same pace for a while. So someone who maybe goes into a class workout and it's 5 rounds, and each of those rounds are within 5 or 10 seconds.
Yep. Yeah. So, or even they negative split the rounds. So like you'll see.
Yeah. Or they're able to get faster. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So you might see like, 108, 106, 104, 102, 101 from them or something like that. So relatively consistent, but like from their first round to their last round, you can even have the opposite, but like from their first round to their last round, you don't really see much of a fall off. It's almost like they kind of like get warmed up like 2 or 3 rounds in, and like that's the individual that you're like, oh, this motherfucker better not catch me. And then catches you.
I'm like that annoying person.
You like, yeah.
You
come back in workouts.
Yeah.
So.
I would say that these people also have a hard time starting out fast. So if you were to ask them to purposely start out hot, they would struggle to accomplish that goal. Or even if they did do that in their mindset, they would still be able to hold relatively similar splits or negative splits.
Yeah. For sure. I had a train of thought there and I just lost it. Oh yeah, what types of athletes have you seen that have come in that are a little bit more on like the enduring side of the spectrum?
I would say people that are a little bit newer to fitness tend to build up their aerobic capacity a little bit quicker. So if they have little to no background in sport or weightlifting or anything like that, they tend to become an enduring athlete a little bit more quickly than they would become a powerful athlete. And then like soccer players or let's see, kind of sort of tennis.
Yeah.
I see like, or long distance runners, like they're just really, or rowers, college rowers.
Yeah.
Really good at enduring, but do have a hard time starting out a little bit hot.
Yeah. So I've actually seen a lot of, this is kind of interesting, but and this is just my experience, so somebody else might have a little bit different experience, but I've actually seen a lot of like kind of like D2, D3 baseball players come in with a little bit higher aerobic capacity. And then the softball players that I've actually seen work have a little bit more explosive ability. And and they're a little bit stronger. Women in general are a little bit more enduring, so they kind of like have a higher endurance profile, so it helps them out a little bit. But that's just kind of like an observation that I've seen, is like sometimes baseball players can come in with a little bit more aerobic capacity, and softball players can sometimes come in a little bit more powerful. So
Interesting. Yeah, I don't think I've had many encounters with baseball players, but I do know a few softball players that are pretty powerful. So that's pretty interesting. Yeah.
yeah. If you guys have seen Amanda on our Instagram, she was a D2 softball player, and she's
That makes so much sense now.
pretty freaking strong.
Never played softball. That's
right. yeah. So but yeah, so those are some of the backgrounds, kind of like the profile breakdowns of the two athletes. And so
the extreme ends.
Yeah, extreme ends. Yeah, most people are going to probably I mean, the endurance, I guess, like some of the endurance stuff that we talked about is probably a little bit less than extreme. I think extreme would probably be like marathon plus running, where you almost have like no strength bias or strength work. So I think we probably touched a little bit on like a little bit outside of the end of the spectrum for endurance, but those are probably pretty close to what you'll see for the ends of the spectrum inside of CrossFit. Now, I don't come across a lot of people that are trying to compete in the open that maybe ran marathons in the past. I have, but I wouldn't say it's very common, if that makes sense. I don't know if that's been your experience.
Yeah, I think it was just helpful to kind of list some of those out just in case people don't know, and kind of be like, oh, I kind of fall in between, or I'm kind of categorized like this.
Yeah. So I guess what do you think are some things like a powerful athlete needs to start kind of paying attention to, like leading into the open, or prepping, or kind of getting their head wrapped around for open workouts? Is that kind of
so I think the main thing for a powerful athlete is to set realistic expectations. So they might see strength weights or reps that they, on paper would have no problem with. But you have to remember, these are also combined with a super high heart rate and intensity. So things tend to change, one, as you get into the workout, and two, as you're pairing it with something else. I think it was Chris Hinshaw that said anything over 3 minutes needs to be paced. So even if it's like a 4-minute workout, and the guy or girl is super powerful, and they're like, no problem, not going to struggle with this, 65-pound, 95-pound thruster bar, it still needs to be paced, at whatever, fits your profile. Ideally, we wouldn't need to pace it, right? Because then we would just complete the work and voila, be done. But that's not the realistic expectation that a powerful athlete needs to just kind of have in the forefront of their brain.
So you're thinking more along the lines of like, a powerful athlete needs to kind of like pay attention to the weights, and just because a 65-pound thruster feels light for 10 reps, it might not be light for 50 reps type thing.
Like taking the whole picture. So taking in the whole picture, accounting for the number of reps, the length of the workout, and what movements are paired with it.
Yeah, for sure. I think too, like for powerful athletes, like kind of bringing it back to the pacing that we were chatting about, like 60 seconds, 105, 107, so on, like getting an idea and testing this out in training now of how do I need to feel to hit consistent splits in my rounds or in my intervals. And like, I think them getting a feeling for their body of what almost too slow feels like is super important for them to understand how to not come out hot in open workouts. And so like getting like, okay, before I hit maybe this training workout, I'm going to hit one round of it and hit it at a pretty hard intensity and see what my time is. And maybe you walk away, maybe it's like 15 chest to bar, 15 bar facing burpees, and 15 calisthenic bike. And so you hit it pretty hard and you walk away at like, 2-minute round or something like that. you're like, "Ooh, okay, breathing a little bit heavy. I obviously
Mhm.
did a 2-minute round there. Maybe I should drop it off to, 230 and try and hold 230 rounds for this workout." And so come in on that first round, do it like break it up so that you can hit that 230 mark. So maybe 5 on the chest to bar. Maybe slow the burpees down. So you're taking, 6 to 7 seconds of burpee versus like 4 seconds of burpee, and then kind of cruise on that assault bike or row to finish out the round, and try and work on just, okay, this is what this feels like. I know that it's not going to feel like this 2 rounds deep.
Mhm.
And then learning how to kind of just like figure out what pace you're going to go at to sustain it over the course of an open workout.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, this kind of just goes back to, the reason we're doing this podcast, and it's to help people understand the importance of training versus,
Mhm,
completing a workout. And, we're definitely not saying that they need to start out slow. Like,
mhm.
what we're saying is that they need to start out paced, and that is
Yeah.
very different than starting out slow.
Mhm.
And that's exactly what you're talking about. You would never understand your pace unless you train similar movements and time frames. Because
Right.
until you understand where the limit is that you can hold, you're not going to understand how to hold that over a sustained time, if that can make
Right.
sense.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I think for a lot of powerful athletes, like it feels slow. So
Hmm.
that's like the kind of feeling that you're going to want to mix up.
And kind
Like,
of get a little anxious and want to go a
yeah,
little
like,
bit too fast. And then they get to the
I'm
second
like,
round and they're
you're
like,
like,
regrets.
yeah. So definitely a great point. Like it's not a slow pace. It is a paced out pace so that you can
Hmm.
sustain that over the course of, you know, 20 or 15 to 20. I think the average open time last year for the top 20 was like 16 minutes or something like that. So
Hmm.
over the course of that 16 minutes, you're sustaining a pace. So
Yep.
yeah, good point, very good point there. So enduring athletes, like what are they kind of like looking for, like an underlying kind of theme to their open workouts?
Yeah, so if we were kind of talking about the powerful athletes trying not to start out too hot, so they kind of bridge the gap of too hot, toning it back, the
Hmm.
endurance athletes are kind of on the opposite end. They're trying not to start out too slow or
Hmm.
too paced. I
Hmm.
don't really want to use the word slow, but too paced, I would say. So that's going to again go back to their training and starting to be comfortable feeling uncomfortable, because the
Hmm.
reason they're more enduring is because they're able to just get comfortable at that pace.
Yeah.
So with
Yeah.
any test, it's going to be uncomfortable. If it's
Yep.
comfortable at the end, we have to redo it.
Yeah.
um, so their goal is to start mentally preparing to be uncomfortable.
Hmm. Hmm. Yep. And I think like as far as like training goes, like getting them intervals that are well above, what their capacity is. So like maybe you give them a workout one week where it's and you ask them for their splits in the workout, and their splits are,
Hmm.
consistently a minute 35 each round. And you're like, okay, now we're going to run intervals on this workout, and I want you to hold a minute 25 each round or a minute 30 each round. And we're going to
Hmm.
go 30 seconds or 45 seconds rest between. And we're just going to keep going for like a couple more rounds than what you hit in the workout, and just, or start out with as many rounds as you hit on the workout, and just get them like used to being a little bit faster on their rounds. You're like, okay, you see how this feels like now. I
Hmm.
want you to try and hold this again when we retest this in 3 weeks or whatever. And getting them used to like tons of lactate, tons of breathing, tons of like high heart rate, and kind of getting them to like get uncomfortable a little bit quicker in that workout. Kind of
Hmm.
like what you're talking about is like get that lactate feeling a little bit faster in that workout.
Yeah, and I think that's a huge point. But let's say hypothetically you're not training with a coach, and so you're just tackling these open workouts.
Hmm.
I think the enduring athlete is a really good candidate for a retest.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
they're almost going to kind of use the first time around to have what you're talking about, feeling super uncomfortable, training that higher pace almost. And then
Yep.
they're going to kind of see if it works out or not. And then
Yeah.
they're going to revisit it in a couple of days. But we'll talk about retests.
Yeah.
We'll go down.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. I mean, that kind of segues us into the
It's kind of a good lead
approach to the weekend. So, most people test the workouts on Friday and then they try and retest on Monday. That's ideal. Some people are Saturday, Monday. Some people are Friday, Sunday type thing. And then potentially even a retest on Monday if it's a workout that's not debilitating. Yeah. So kind of like an approach to the weekend. That's kind of like how you want to approach the weekend. Like there's no point in retrying the workout Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday and trying it like twice on Monday.
I think that's a big point. I mean, I know we kind of say that sarcastically, but I see a lot of people go in, they do it Friday morning, they do it Friday evening, they do it Saturday afternoon. And, we're telling you that's not going to be realistic or help you utilize all of your fitness.
Yeah. I mean,
in that span.
Yeah. What you kind of have to think about there is how many contractions are you putting of the same contraction into the body over the course of a, I guess, 72, 86 hour span or 96 hour span. Sorry. My math was off a little bit there. And like, if a workout has 300 or 400, 500 double unders in it, and you're getting relatively the same score each retest and expecting to do better on each one, like you have to remember, like, okay, on that second retest, like you have already accumulated 1,000 double unders. And like, what is the volume that you put in an average training session? Is it, most people are at kind of like the 300 to 500 range for volume and double unders in a training session. And now all of a sudden you've doubled that in the course of 24 to 48 hours, and then could triple it in the course of 72 hours. So it's like, so it's just like something you kind of have to think about going into these tests is like, we're trying to minimize volume contraction as much as possible. So we're trying to get the most out of these attempts as possible. And this is kind of the reason for this podcast, is so that you don't retest Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday. But
or feel like you need to.
Yeah.
Question for you. I think, a lot of people have this question. If you are doing the open, do you think it's always necessary to retest a workout?
No, it depends. Yeah. It depends on the type of athlete you are. And we'll kind of talk about this when we're talking about strategy for workouts as well, but there are several times. So this is where also having a coach comes in. So this is a little bit off topic, but this is where having a coach comes in. And there are several times in the past, this is speaking from personal experience now, where I felt like I could have just done pretty easy work, like easy aerobic work Tuesday, Wednesday of the week, and then come in Friday and just tried to go as hard as I possibly could on an open workout. And then done easy work Saturday and maybe a retest Monday. But I think that one retest doing easy work, like maybe have a normal training session on Monday. But just doing that easy work beforehand and going as hard as I possibly could. Cause I knew, like, if you know your body pretty well, you know about where you're going to get and how it's going to feel when you get there. And I knew my body pretty well. I knew how to push my body pretty well. So if you have an athlete that you're coaching that's like that, a little bit more, again, this is for a little bit more powerful athletes that can kind of dig pretty deep, then I don't think you necessarily need to retest an open workout. Or it also depends on your goals. Like if you're a team that's trying to qualify and you're the next level of competition is going to be where your limitation is. Like you guys are probably going to get through the open pretty easily or the qualifier pretty easily. Then you don't have
so it's not worth it in the long run
for if that's your goal. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I think for a more powerful athlete, they might just have one retest because the contraction volumes just literally might mess them up that bad. I mean, I've been so sore testing on Friday and going into Monday that like I knew that I wasn't going to get a better score.
Not possible.
Yeah.
So maybe if you're a little bit more like biased towards the power athlete, you really start to think about your structure for the week and making sure that that one day that you are maximizing it. And then if needed, it might be possible, but not necessary every week.
Yep. Also strength bias workouts, like if they leave you pretty sore too. I that workout last year with the pistols and box jumps and clean and jerks, I think I had 1 or 2 athletes that did better. With like, I think I had like 15 or 16 people doing the open. So that one.
Yeah, I also did not do better, but at that time you were not my coach. So
So but yeah, so that, like, some of these strength ladders, like if your CNS is just toasted from it and like you're pretty freaking sore, like that one might not be one that you're going to do a little bit better on as a general, like even for enduring athletes as well. So is that kind of
it's a good point.
Answer the question. Yeah. So I guess bring it back to the approach for the weekend. So we're always going to want to start with a warm up before either Friday's attempt or Saturday's attempt. And then we want it to be very extensive. So 15 to 30 minutes worth of warming up. 15 might even be too short. And then you're also going to want to use some intervals of the actual work that you're going to perform to, one, get used to it, and then kind of test out and see how everything's going to feel. Have you used that approach in the past, or?
When we were doing beach brawl, we actually used that to practice some of our workouts. So it wasn't game day necessarily, but it was the weeks leading up to it.
Yep. Yeah. And so if you were a little bit more powerful athlete, you can and thinking back, bringing us back to your other point, I actually did that with somebody. Is we gave them interval work on Friday and easier work on Saturday of the open workouts, and then had them test once on Monday. I'm trying to remember. They had a pretty good open. I remember that, and they always walked away from their scores pretty happy, which managing emotions in the open is very difficult.
So a whole other podcast, part 2.
But they were able to see other people's strategies, figure out what strategy they thought was going to work best for them, and maximize that strategy on Monday. And we also kind of practiced some of the strategies in their Friday session. We just kind of left it up to them, test out what strategy you want to test out, get some flow work on Saturday, and then Monday we retested. So that is another option for powerful athletes to kind of maximize their performance throughout the weekend. So warm up, and then how would you go about testing the first workout? Are you going like all out? Are you like trying to save a little bit in the tank?
So notoriously, I'm more of an enduring athlete. So even if I say that I'm going to go all out on the first attempt, chances are I could probably go a little bit harder. So personally, I'll probably tackle the first workout with my initial strategy based on kind of what I've been feeling out pace-wise in training, and then kind of reevaluate after. If I'm on the floor, like I can pretty much tell by my breathing or like how long it takes me to kind of get myself together if I actually did exert all of my energy, or not. And if I kind of get done and like 20 minutes later I'm like high-fiving people walking out the door, then I'll probably redo it. Just because there's a little bit more intake, but it also depends on the workout, because like you said, if it's like high contraction and I know that I have whatever in the past, it's been 5 more weeks or 3 more weeks, like then it becomes not just the picture of the weekend, but the picture of the month and a half or the month.
Yeah, right. Yeah, the marathon that is the open.
Or the open. Or was.
I like to try and get people to leave some in the tank, just a little bit, not every, like not 80%, but I think it goes well to just get a test on the workout and to feel what it's going to feel like when it gets hard. So that first attempt, for the most part, I like people to kind of come up with their initial strategy for it. And again, we kind of chat about the initial strategy for everybody. And then from there, test it out, but kind of test at 80% and just kind of see if that's the strategy that's going to work well for them. A great example of that would be the 40 muscle ups, 80 wall balls, and 120 cal. Was it? I think it was 80 cal.
Yeah.
Yeah, 120 wall balls.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
something like that.
Yeah. So that one was a perfect one where you could test your initial strategy and, kind of hold some back a little bit. The contraction volume also wasn't super high on that one, which was good. And just kind of see if that was what you were going to use or if it worked well, and then kind of retest that again on Monday. And just kind of pick up the pace a little bit, pick up the effort a little bit, or adjust some things and kind of come back and hit it a little bit differently on Monday. So that first attempt for most people, unless you are only attempting one time, I kind of like to have them go, 93, 95% on it, and just kind of leave some of that in the tank for that retest on Monday. So you aren't walking away like doing 1,000 double unders and you're like, well, my calves are effed.
Yeah.
So yeah, as far as like the first attempt goes, like 93, 95%, not all out, not like dying on the floor for 60 minutes afterwards, like still able to kind of walk out of the gym. Like Hannah's a good example, like what she just talked about, the 20 minutes later, I'm like high-fiving people and going to get a cheeseburger.
I am not talking about the cheeseburger again.
But yeah, so I think that's good for the first attempt. Saturday, for the most part, should not be a tough training day. It should be flow work,
Right.
Just loosening up some of the tissues that were destroyed in the night before. Getting
If you had to put a time on that, what would you say to most people?
For like the training session in total?
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's gonna vary per person. Like some people would do well with like a 2-hour like just aerobic piece where they're doing a 1K row, some movement work, a 2-mile bike, some movement work, and other people are gonna do well with like 30 to 60 minutes and get out of the gym and go take a nap for another 60 minutes or something like that. So kind of just depends again on the athlete. And you had kind of talked about some nutritional stuff that would benefit recovery as well, right?
Yeah. So, we should be doing this most of the time anyway, but especially when we're looking to recover as quickly as possible. We want to make sure that, right after or as soon as you can digest something after, usually that's about 20 minutes. Within the hour is usually kind of my general rule of thumb. But we want to have some protein, preferably powdered form, and some straight carbs. So the best and easiest way to do that is just a scoop of protein, and if you have a carb supplement, like 2 scoops of that. So it kind of puts you about 30 grams, maybe 50 grams for guys, 30 grams for females, and then roughly 30 to 60 grams of carbs within that hour.
Yeah. What about like the rest of the weekend? Are you looking to like up their calorie count at all, or increase certain macros, or?
Usually you don't want to make any adjustments during game time. So all of those adjustments, getting up to maintenance calories, making sure training feels good, all of that should have been done prior to. And nothing really in the middle of those 4 days is going to make that big of a difference.
Yeah.
You do want to make sure that you are eating enough. So that is a big thing, because a lot of times with high intensity workouts like this, we don't feel like eating.
And the stress.
And the stress of it. Yeah. So people respond differently to that. So making sure that we do get enough.
Yeah. Cool. And then retest, guys, on Monday is just balls to the wall, everything you got left in the tank. If you and your coach have decided that it would be good
with your strategy,
with your new strategy or with your same strategy. Again, some of these might not allow for a retest, or it might not be smart to do a retest. I think with it being 3 weeks now, like you're probably going to want to retest, especially if you felt like you had anything left in the tank coming out of that first attempt. So that's kind of like the approach to the weekend. Again, a good warm up on Monday. Very focused on opening up tissues that will be used in the workout that are probably a little bit sore. Get some touches on the sets of the workout. Again, this is just to kind of like prime the central nervous system at this point in time, not really give you any pacing ideas. And then just kind of like make sure you get a good blood flow in after the workout, because you are going to be hurting or should be hurting. So as far as like pacing for workouts goes now, kind of like I guess the meat and potatoes of the
the exciting part.
Yeah. So for a bottleneck workout, like how do you look at pacing that, or telling other people how to pace a bottleneck workout like that? Let's use a handstand push-up. Let's do 2159 deadlifts and handstand push-ups into 2159 deadlifts, 50-foot handstand walk between rounds. For those of you that don't know, it was like Diane at Diane RX weight, and then you would go right into heavier deadlifts with 50-foot handstand walks in between the 2159. I think the deadlift weight was 315 and 205 on that one. So it was kind of like a lower back or deadlift bottleneck workout. So how would you kind of like go about pacing for that?
Yeah, so I think what's going to be most helpful is just to kind of identify kind of a couple strategies of how to pace it, because us talking about one hypothetical individual is going to be kind of hard to relate to. But if we kind of look at the workout, like you said, it's a bottleneck neck workout. So you're supposed to get stuck somewhere. So what you need to kind of evaluate is look at the workout, and we need to first do an evaluation of your handstand push-ups. So are you someone that's going to be able to get through the first set and into the handstand walk? That's question number one. Question number two is, can you complete the handstand walk? Because if you're someone who can get there, but you cannot actually handstand walk, that's another different strategy. And then kind of the third option there is going to be, can you finish the workout? So in my mind, there's kind of three phases to how I would tell someone to pace that. And it's one, if they're going to initially just struggle through the first set of handstand push-ups, deadlifts, that's going to be one strategy. The second one is going to be a strategy just to get them to the handstand walk. And then the third one is to make sure that they can complete the workout.
Yeah, for sure. So in dealing with somebody who can complete the workout, what kind of strategy are you looking for them? So there's still going to be a bottleneck, and this is kind of where you get into the elite athlete realm. Like they're a little bit better at handling the bottlenecks. But how are you looking at pacing for that individual?
Again, it's going to kind of depend on their strength. So if they are really efficient at both of those movements, we just want to make sure that we don't go out so hot on that first set that you get to the handstand walk and you immediately fall over. Because we saw a lot of that. So it was like cruising, totally cool, go to kick up to your first handstand walk and eat it. So it's like one, expecting that your shoulders are going to feel different under that. So knowing that we need to kind of think ahead, and maybe it's not that we do all of them unbroken, maybe we can, but then that's going to require a little bit more time before we kick up, or we break up strategically just to take off that kind of tension from us for a second.
Yep. I always like to, so like there is still, like with somebody who's finishing a workout like that, there's definitely still a bottleneck in some way, shape, or form in that workout. So maybe it's like your handstand walking speed slows down because you can't get as far of a lean on the handstand walk. So like, how do we mitigate that? Or maybe your deadlift bar speed slows down. So how do we, or you have to break start breaking it up into like more sets or something like that. So I'm
Mhm.
always looking for an athlete that can finish that workout or doesn't have like a skill limitation with that workout to
Mhm.
what is your capacity at for, the requirement of the workout. So whether that be 45 handstand push-ups and 150 feet of handstand walking, and with the open, some of that might be, some estimation type stuff off of previous workouts that they've done, or what is your capacity for 90 deadlifts? Have we
Mhm.
trained that before? Is that something that we've worked
Right.
on? And so for that, we're kind of looking at like, okay, we're perceiving that this is going to kind of be the area that we need to manage for this round of 15 deadlifts. You'll get a little bit of break, and then it's just 9 after that. So what do we need to do, or how do we need to break this up to make sure that you're fresh for that round of 15 and you can go, 5-5-5 or 5-4. I think 5-4-3-2-1 would get you there. For your sets on these 15 deadlifts without taking too much time in between. So
Mhm.
I'm always looking for, or like if you can finish a workout looking at, okay, where's the bottleneck going to be for me based off
Mhm.
of previous data, and what do I need to do to make sure that I'm not blown up like I did 45 straight deadlifts at 225 and then,
Right.
13-8 on the first set of 21 on the next one. So what do I need to do to make sure that I'm not blown up for that perceived bottleneck? And that's kind of what an athlete should be looking at. A more powerful athlete in that realm is probably
Mhm.
looking at breaking up a little bit more or quickly and sooner. They might have a strength where they're playing kind of to the deadlift. A more enduring athlete might be looking at just like quick and shorter breaks. I know I have athletes who like bigger sets and they work a little bit better with bigger sets. So they might be doing, despite the bottleneck being that round of 15, they might be doing, one set on the 21, two sets on the 15, set of 9 unbroken, and then they might be doing two sets on the round of 21, and then just kind of manage on that round of 15. So,
Mhm.
everyone's a little bit different, but it's just kind of like figuring out where that bottleneck is going to be for you to maximize based off of previous training performances, to maximize and pace correctly to when you get to that bottleneck. And again, like your retest will help out a lot
Mhm.
in this one, especially if you are able to retest that one, in telling you kind of like, okay, did you overpace, did you underpace, like what do you need to do to that retest? And so that's where kind of like that 92, 93, maybe 90% on a workout like that would really come into play going into Mondays. You can definitely see
Yeah.
I over underpaced that one.
Yeah, and I mean, especially having a coach too, because in your brain you might think that it was one way or the other, but it might be something
Yeah,
different.
for sure.
Yeah, but I definitely think step one is figuring out where you as an athlete are going to get bottlenecked, because we
Yep.
could sit here and tell you different strategies all day, but we don't know you or what your training is like right now. So
Mhm.
wherever you envision yourself getting stuck on a sort of workout like this is where you need to kind of think ahead and start developing a pacing strategy, whether that's larger sets, like you said, because you feel like you work better through that, or that's short, fast sets to get you through kind of the sticking point for you.
For sure, for sure. Bias workouts.
Mm-hmm.
Again, I think this kind of comes back to, what is your capacity at, or, what is the bias of the workout? Maybe there's like a upper body pulling bias to a workout. And there's a little bit of like, power snatches in there, or there's a grit bias to the workout. And part of this is just going to be kind of like figuring out where your capacity is at for that. And then creating a strategy around that. So if it's an upper body pulling bias workout, or it's a taller person bias workout, how do we manage the fatigue for this, or what kind of pace do you need to move at to put up a competitive score relative to your goal in this workout? So those are kind of some thoughts to keep in mind when you're attacking like a bias workout. And what are some of your thoughts on the bias one?
I think that sometimes those ones look especially simple.
Mhm.
Um, and they often become the most important to kind of
Yeah,
find what works for you. And
right.
I think that was a great example of the row wall ball one.
Yeah.
Because it looks really manageable, and then you
Yeah.
kind of get into it and you're like, oh God, okay. So yeah, again, looking at what your limitation is with what's kind of pulled up, and then finding a strategy where you're spending the least amount of time resting.
Yeah. I guess for that row wall ball one, like you're also going to have to kind of know your pacing on a rower. So like having done, 100 cals for time, 100 or like 500 cals for time, stuff like that, where you're starting to understand like, okay, like this is a 20-minute workout. My, 250 cals for time is roughly 20 minutes. I held this for that amount of time. What are my legs going to look like coming off of the wall balls? Will that transition be enough? Are the wall balls going to be a no factor in the workout because they are so light? And I have, a 400-pound front squat. So those are all kind of some questions that you kind of need to ask yourself going into like a bias workout, like the row and wall ball. And like the same thing with like, if there's a, gymnastics or upper body pulling bias, like, just coming up with kind of ideas of where you're at and what you kind of are capable of in that moment. So I know we had chatted about this one, strength limited workout. What are kind of some of your thoughts on this one?
That one, man, you just have to, one, you got to hit a good warm up so that you're ready and primed.
Yeah. Especially for
during
athletes.
Yeah. But two, especially if you've been in the game for a while and you're kind of ingrained in your brain exactly what your 80% is, exactly what your 90% is. And you kind of start to paint this mental block for yourself of like, okay, well, that's above my 1 RM or, whatever like that, getting out of that. So knowing that we don't often get to experience the competitive environment, and with that comes a lot of other hormones that we don't often train with. So kind of going for it on that one. That's the one where I kind of been more of like, no, you just kind of got to go for it.
Yeah.
Obviously in a realistic way, we don't want to just try and fail every 30 seconds, like doing like every 30 seconds an attempt. Like we want to be smart about our attempts at it.
Yeah.
But try not to kind of go all out and then like be planned to stop.
Yeah.
That kind of makes sense.
I always like to create like a on the clock type workout for these.
Yeah.
Is like, okay, we know that this bar is going to be an issue for you. We're going to take the other, let's say there's 3 bars ahead of it. We're going to take the other 3 bars, and the first one you're going to lift on a 5-second clock. And the next one, if you're doing all singles on something, like the first one you're going to lift on a 5-second clock. So really fast, like you take if it's clean and jerks, you're taking your lift and you're coming back down and picking it back up. Maybe the next one's on a 7-second clock. So you take your clean and jerk, you let it settle, and then take the next one type thing. And then, a 9-second clock. So you get a little bit of a breath in there, and then you kind of chase the bar back down. And then, okay, here's the bar that we know you're going to like take a little bit of time with, like every 30 seconds, we're just going to hit a lift. Every 30 seconds, hit a lift. Kind of like what you were talking about is we're just going to kind of grind away at this bar. And you know what, if you come away from this and you're like, man, I kind of want to try a 25-second clock next time and see if I can get a little bit further into the next round. Like, great. Like under pacing on this workout is perfect on that first attempt. Over pacing can leave you just
not great.
Super taxed. But I've found that like, I think a little bit more experienced athletes know their bodies a little bit better, kind of know when they can take lifts. So they might not need to be on a clock as much, but and they might be able to come up with some pretty good sets for how they want to attack the barbells before it. But I think for somebody who's like a little bit nervous about that barbell, like giving them a little bit more of like almost like an overpaced strategy to start of like, all right, we're gonna try this every minute on the minute when you get to the barbell, and you're gonna rest a full minute before you even take one attempt at them. I think it just allows them to like kind of settle down, not allow them to visualize hitting that lift inside of the workout, not get over anxious about like my heart rate's high, I have a bunch of epinephrine, like let's just do this. And then if they miss that first attempt, it's like it's almost game over at that point in time. So
yeah, it's wasting more time than if you were to actually just take the time.
Yeah. So I like strategies for that. Powerful athletes, I don't think need to warm up as much for workouts like this. If you're building up to a 315 clean and jerk, you're as a powerful athlete and you're 315, 205, and your clean and jerk max is like 325. Like that's a pretty big central nervous
Right.
system right before
Yeah.
that workout. That's
Don't hit it right
yeah,
before.
yeah, that's gonna, take a lot out of you going right into that workout, which is gonna affect some of your pacing strategies. And then for an enduring athlete, I think it's a little bit more okay to build up. I think they warm up throughout the workout as well, but a 85, 90% lift isn't going to be as taxing to them as it will be for a powerful athlete. So like warming up for that is kind of a little bit different between the two athletes. So
yeah, and like warming up well, it can look differently for the two types of athletes. So you can still hit a good warm up, but maybe for the powerful athlete, it's not in terms of building on the lift.
It might be. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
Yeah, it might be like you're hitting positional breathing and trying to unlock some tissue and like really warm the heart up, going like super slow on a machine for a powerful athlete. So. Thruster, burpee, chest to bar, and row. I don't know your thoughts on this one, but
ouch.
yeah, basically.
Yeah, I mean, don't fall into the trap of trying to do too big of sets. I think that's pretty common.
I think this workout more than any is the one that people see the top athletes do in person and just absolutely smash, like Frazier going that 33, 27, 21 workout, like Frazier going like 7 or sub 7 on it, and people are like, oh, I'm probably gonna go like 10 minutes on it or 8 minutes.
Yeah, like, oh, I should definitely go unbroken then. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So like I honestly think that for this workout or this style of workout, don't fall into that trap is the big thing. Come up with a strategy and break it up. Again, this goes back to capacity. More than likely, you've probably tested something like 5-minute MRAP thrusters or done a workout with 100 thrusters in it and 100 chest to bar. That's about where the volume is, or 100 burpees or something like that. So don't fall into the trap of seeing what they do and trying to replicate that.
Mimic it. Yep.
You will crash and burn unless you are a top games athlete. But yeah, I think for this one more than anything, it's just not falling into that trap and breaking up earlier and often than you're kind of seeing them do, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and I think not only to kind of fight off that, the end range of your muscle endurance, but also to keep your heart rate from going just through the roof, and then you're just, before you know it, hands on knees for a minute. I think this is a good one to kind of talk about, like plan Bs. So like, let's say you have a strategy going in and it breaks down, what do you do?
What are your thoughts on that?
I mean, at some point you just got to get it done. So making a note of it, because hypothetically you're going to do this twice. So that's a really, you're not going to find a new workout strategy in the middle of a broken workout strategy. So being realistic with yourself, and like if shit hits the fan, like you just got to get it done. And then at the end you can reflect on it, and we can try something else the next day, but the next attempt. But I think most importantly, not freaking out. So there's going to be a panic moment, and chances are your strategy for all of these workouts is not going to go 100% to plan. But just trying to stay smooth and on a rhythm, whether that's a breathing rhythm or like a clock rhythm, like you were talking about, but just trying to stay as calm as possible while you're in it. And then you can kind of panic and freak out afterwards or be upset afterwards, but definitely not waste that time in the middle.
Still, you still want to get that good attempt in to see, like, kind of go back and look at what your split times were, and like seeing like, okay, like here's a 2-minute split between rounds where I just fucking crashed and burned. So
and we need that data. If you just quit, we don't know.
Yeah. We're like, okay, well, you
Well,
quit
we
on
know
the
what you
round.
can do for 2 minutes, but we
Yeah.
don't know what that's going to look like in minute 10.
Yeah. Or it's like you quit on the round to, 21 after you finish the chest bar, like you only had 24 more thrusters to go. Like, what
Right.
would that have looked like? Like, oh, okay, you got through it and you suffered a little bit, or okay, you shit the bed on this one, like, or you just crash and burned on this. Like, let's try and slow,
Reevaluate.
yeah, those
Yeah.
first 3 rounds down. Yeah. So but yeah, more than likely you guys have done some sort of testing for, whatever the capacity is for the most part on this workout. And you can kind of like, if you've taken 100 chest bars or 100 burpees and 100 thrusters and you kind of mash them together, and you're like relatively like 4:30 or 4 minutes would be on the high end for those. So like combine those two together, you're at 8 minutes, and then you're like transitions and fatigue, probably extrapolate that out another minute to 90 seconds. And you're looking at, if you have 100 930 for the workout, or right around there. So that's kind of what I, and like just kind of get that in your head and how you need to break that up to get that number. So that's kind of like what I like to do for those workouts. And then the last one we have here, kind of wrapping it up, is the continuous movement workout. So just 20.2, 4 thrusters, 6 toes to bar, 24 double unders. Just keep on
Love
moving.
it. Love it.
Yeah.
Hand it on over. That one I feel like is very rhythm based. So
Yep.
they're short reps. There's going to be a lot of transitions. It's long. It's boring. It's not very technical. So it just needs to be, you gotta, that's where we're going to kind of use the mental training that hopefully you've been doing, where you just kind of zone out. So you just got to pay attention to those transitions and just really don't get too excited at the beginning because it's so short.
Yeah.
Really picture yourself in that 15 minutes so you can kind of start to live that pace the whole time and hopefully be able to, finish strong in the end instead of kind of fizzle out.
Yeah. This is one that I love to do, the like test around out. What is your time? Okay, let's take that and like subtract, 20 seconds, because you're going to have to hold that over the course of 20 plus rounds, so, and even the other one, the 5, 10, 15, like do a round unbroken pretty fast. Let's see where you're at. And okay, you can pause a little bit longer on your box jumps. You can pause, or you can slow your deadlifts down a little bit, and like looking at like, getting a idea of what a fast round looks like, and then taking some time and slowing it down from there. So this is one that I for sure would the continuous movements ones are just ones where I would test around, see where you're at on that round a little bit faster. Enduring athletes might just test around and screw it, just hold that pace. Yeah. But yeah, for more like powerful athletes, definitely like test that round and just kind of see where you're at, and probably back off a few seconds. And again, you want that first attempt to be, 93, 95%, so that you're leaving a little bit in the tank. And if you feel like you can hold a little bit faster, maybe try and negative split that on the next time. So hold, let's say a round's taking you 45 seconds, hold that for the first half of the workout. And then on the next half of the workout, try and pick it up to 40 seconds. So, or if you wanted to vice versa, that every 40 seconds, then go down to 45 seconds. But like for these as well, like there's a point in time, especially with like a 20-minute workout, where you just need to drop the hammer and just get it done when you can get it done. Usually that's with like the last 5 minutes left, just fucking go. Or like the, the last 2 rounds, just go on something like the shoulder to overhead box jump workouts. So yeah. Do you have anything else on there?
No, I think moral of the story is look at yourself as an individual and use your data, and use recent data. Not your friends, not like the general population, not Matt Frazier who's going to test it on live TV. Like
or to
not who you want to be, not what you think you can do. Like, use hard data
yeah,
so
yeah,
that you can really try to optimize what you can do in
right.
these 3 or 6 weeks.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And you
And then
are
if you're unhappy, hire a coach so that you can improve for next year.
Yep, yep. You are your own unique athlete. So make sure
Yeah,
you test these to your own unique pacing strategies. So well, cool.
exactly.
Thanks for coming on, Hannah.
Yeah, no problem.
We will chat with everyone here later. Thank you for listening. If you guys are listening on Apple Podcasts, make sure you guys follow us on YouTube. If you guys are watching on YouTube, you guys can listen to these on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. As always, if you guys don't mind giving us a follow on our Instagram page, we put out some movement work and some drills for things on our every Monday on our Instagram page. We also release some workouts if you guys are looking for some fun and challenging workouts every Wednesday and Saturday. We release some good ones. So yeah, thanks for listening, guys, and we'll catch you next time.